Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Here. Bush.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
We will start with recognitions.
I shared this with the board when it first came out. I think I actually shared a photograph of Matthew in Madison with Senator Mark Klein. I'm kind of surprised Matthew's not here, being that he's involved in so many things. But Matthew was our representative for State Senate Scholar Program. After talking with Matthew, loved everything about it. Would love to stay involved. There's a national opportunity. I don't know. Again, you have to kind of qualify for that national level, but he just really enjoyed the people that he got to meet, people he got to talk with. And obviously for us, he's a fantastic representative for the school district of Minter Point. Mr. Austin, anything else you'd like to share about?
Matthew's at forensics right now. That's why he's not.
Pretty poor excuse, being involved in other extracurricular kinds of things.
He loved it. He was really excited. So if you're a junior and you participate, you can qualify for the national one, which just means you apply for it. And I think he said there's, I want to say there's 38 kids. Either one or two for the national. So he's really hoping to get into that side of it. Really enjoyed his week up there. So he was really excited about it.
So big congratulations to Matthew for this honor and being able to be a part of this program in Madison. So congratulations.
All right.
That's certainly a recognition tonight.
Yeah, isn't it just so? Doesn't Senator Mark Klein only select one student for the whole district, or is it variable? It was a pretty.
It is a pretty select
Selective
group.
thing.
It is a select group. I think there's
Okay, it's not like 1% at district or something like that.
anyway, sure. I might be
I
wrong.
knew it was a big deal.
It
Okay,
is a really big deal to get selected. I'm probably wrong on it.
I'll do my research. Okay, go to consent agenda. That contains minutes from the regular January meeting. Our board retreat on the 22nd, winter retreat, and our meeting with the staff representatives on the 11th. Also includes bills payable and credit card statement of activity. So I'll take a motion to approve everything together or individually.
I'll move approve together.
I have
Yes.
a question. I am on the list of bills payable as a reimbursement for an expense incurred as part of the state ed convention. Is it appropriate for me do I need to abstain or
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you.
I don't think so. Aren't we all reimbursed from convention?
In most cases, the school covered the bill. In my case, my personal card got charged and then the school is paying me back for it. So it's like a direct payment to me.
Just abstain.
Okay, okay, well then I will abstain and that is why.
Harris and Bergstrom for the consent agenda.
Can I ask one question
Oh, sure.
just about the bills payable? I'm curious. I know we pay CISA. We had one moment while my brain reconfigures. We know what we're getting in terms of the services and we pay those, I think, quarterly or something.
Correct.
What the school improvement services, what are we getting for that? It feels like it's an exciting opportunity to have access to that. So I just want to make sure we're taking advantage of it. It's 5,000.
I'll let any of my building principals talk about that. Part of what part of that for me is that PAC meeting, a professional
that's
advisory
part of the
committee.
school
That's
improvement.
part of that
Got it.
group as well. There are, they call them SID meetings, the School Improvement Division, that principals can go to for academic, keeping them up to date on, any kind of legislation, any kind of things that are changing as well. So, I mean, it is valuable, and we've had that ever since I've been here and been taking advantage of it in the 13 years. So
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we're using it.
Well, what about like, what happened last year at the middle school? I think Miss Dahl was working with a team from CISA on like processing test results.
doing a data dig, yes,
dig.
absolutely. That's
That
part
would-
of our CISA dues as well.
Would that be under school improvement services, for
Correct.
example?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And,
Kristen Golly came here. Kristen Golly is the CISA representative that worked with our middle school and Miss Dahl on doing some of that.
okay. Was good. Okay. Ms. Rawson, are you working with someone from CISA on the portrait of a Pointer graduate
So that
project?
was a separate initiative, so that's not coming in, but very,
Okay,
yes, we're working over it.
yeah, cool. Okay.
We had day 2 last week.
Great, thanks.
Anybody else?
Harris,
Yes.
Eichner,
Abstain.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next we'll go to communications. Joan, you want to start with any board communications?
Yes, I received an email from a parent of one of our students who participates in the cross-country team that we share with Dodgeville. Going into some detail around the WIA's competitive balance plan, and talking about how that really quite negatively impacts our students' opportunities in that sport, and wanted to make sure we understood that that was not something that would work in our favor. I think that's the only one I had.
Are you aware of what's going on there, and is Mr. Carr aware?
I
Of the
saw an
concerns
email that was shared out. And I shared that I have written a letter in support of our cross-country programs and approaching the WIA, looking for some kind of satisfaction to what's going to happen to our girls program next year. So I've been involved in some of that as well.
Do you know if the school board can in any way be an advocate on this issue, or do you think that's not the right? I mean, I don't work much with the WIA, or like whether passing a resolution or doing anything like that would be of any value, but any insight on that? Or is it something we just need to be aware of?
I think being aware of it at this point in time is probably where we need to stay. As they like to report out, they are the organization that represents 412 different independent school districts in the state of Wisconsin. And, so I mean, they'll listen, and unfortunately, in the few dealings I've had, it doesn't go much past that. We'll keep doing what we can to support our kids and our team as a co-op team. So I don't know that there's anything that the board needs to do at this time.
That's all.
I get the same email, and I recommended that they contact Mike Humke. So the WASB president has a seat on the WIA board, and they weren't aware of that. So now basically the school board president of Dodgeville's on the board of the WIA, and then I encourage them to contact the other representative from Blackhawk so that they would be in touch with 2 representatives, which I think is their best chance. And then I said, if, does not speak for the whole school board, but if they were doing a petition or something like that, that I'd offer to look at it and sign it. But I think that's really the best thing, is to try to work with their own board. considering the Dodgeville school president's now on the board.
Right.
So they said that they would reach out to them. That was all.
Great.
Just that one.
So,
Is that awesome?
Okay, that's the same one. Okay. We'll go to citizen communications. Did anyone sign up tonight? Anyone online, if you'd like to participate in public comment, just use the raise hand icon. We'll give you your 3 minutes. On once. Someone's in the waiting room, Mitch, I guess, or
I've clicked to allow them in, so.
yeah. Looks like there's a delay there, so we'll just move on. Okay. Next is items for information and discussion. First is to review our school board priorities for this year. Number one is staff recruitment and retention. We met with the staff representatives, which I thought was a good, positive first step. So hopefully that can build a relationship between the board and the staff moving forward to make sure we're aware of their needs and do what best to help them out as much as possible. Let's see. I guess would there be plans to maybe meet with staff representatives around budget time coming soon, potentially,
Again,
if needed?
you just have to be careful that can't be negotiations.
Yes.
There's not a voted on, approved union,
Right.
and therefore you can't negotiate, but you can certainly have conversations around important topics heading into the next
Or
contract year.
just seek input.
Yep, exactly.
Any other comments on that priority?
also just that you had sent out quite a nice communication to the entire staff. And explaining what our approach was and why we had met with people and how others can engage. I think that was a nice additional touch.
Andy and I had met with a table of teachers and they had suggested making more detail in the agenda, which Mitch and Aaron, I saw that you did. Is it okay if I follow up with those teachers and see what they thought or,
Sure.
and just get feedback?
I'm not sure how much more detail, but normal.
I mostly just want to have them, make sure they had a chance to see it and see if it's like.
I'm just saying, I don't know what we did in different this month. I mean,
I feel like there were a couple extra items at the sentence under some of the items.
Yeah,
But yeah,
we talked about,
do all of you
There's more
log into board mode?
Yeah.
So I get the agenda?
Yeah, but I went to the public version. So that
Yeah,
I could see
so-
what. I think that's
'Cause
the.
we can see who logs in and when.
But I think this is about the staff, the staff wouldn't log into board book.
No.
So that's the public.
The public
The
facing agenda.
public facing
Sure.
agenda
Yep.
to have more detail so people know when they should show up or like what's being talked about.
Mhm.
Digress.
Yeah. Mitch, I'm just trying to recall our conversation about being a little more descriptive and clear on the agenda, but we can just keep working on it. It was kind of like, well, how do we do it without being super verbose and too wordy? How do we use, references and attachments and things like that? So. But yeah, if you want to get that feedback from the staff that were concerned about it, that would be helpful. Okay, next is providing safe and social environment for students and staff. Do you have any updates on that? I know that some of the students are having like sources of strength meetings before school.
Hopefully you all saw the email that I sent out from student group. They sent out thank yous to all staff members and the school board. That was part of a recent activity.
That's nice.
We have our middle school group that's actually doing some Valentines for the care center residents, as well as just trying to reach out and make connections to the community through that process. And I would go back up to the recruit and retain. One of the suggestions that you had through your board retreats were trying to provide gas cards for student teachers, and I have handed out a couple of gas cards already to some of our student teachers that we have this semester. So we're very much appreciated.
I had an opportunity to attend the boys basketball game last Tuesday. I think it was Thursday. And in the program, there was a really nice, the backside of one of the pages was a write-up about sources of strength. And I thought, what a cool way to put that in the hands of the community at a time when they might, just have a chance to sit down and read it because they're waiting for the game to start, or just thought that was really well written and well placed to connect with people who might not have otherwise gotten that content.
Ms. McGraw?
That just reminded me, that idea.
That's awesome.
Student section was great that night, by the way,
Yes.
as an aside.
And the music was, the pep band was fun. The national anthem was awesome. I can't say enough good things about the experience that night.
Oh, that was great. Okay, anyone else on that? Already, okay, school board governance. We'll talk a little bit about this later, but we had our winter retreat. We went to the school board convention as a board, and we'll summarize that. So kind of made a to-do list for the rest of the year and into the summer. Specifically kind of addressing the strategic plan and maybe getting that revised and updated summer. So, and I feel like we're using committees better. I think the consent agenda is working well. I think we're still kind of getting used to using the parking lot, and I think it's getting there. As far as paying more attention to it, I know Mitch and I referenced it at our last meeting, and I think we can kind of make a point to keep looking at it at every regular meeting. And of course, we're filling out our meeting evaluation tool quarterly, which we'll be doing after this meeting. Okay.
Go back to your question about Matthew.
Yes.
He was the only representative for District 17. So he was the only one for the area that Senator Mark Klein represents.
And that's a lot of schools.
Correct.
That's a big deal. Okay, next we'll go to the district financial audit by Johnson and Block.
Quinn Mitchell is here to share that information out with the school board. And I'll ask Quinn to come forward.
Be great.
Right. I think the presentation document was probably included in the board packets for this meeting. So I'll just kind of go over brief highlights from the 22-23 audit. We did an audit of the financial statements, and then we also, anytime that a school district receives or spends over $750,000 of federal money, a single audit is required. So we're doing some compliance testing of your federal and state grants too. So that was required for 22-23 as well. We issued unmodified opinions on both the financial statements and the compliance testing, which is a clean opinion, the best that you can get. And then management, reviewed and accepted the financial and single audits before we issued them. We also prepare some reports with DPI. The district submits their end of the year balances, and then we go in and certify and kind of agree that all the audited balances agree to what the district has on their books. The second page in there, and just kind of a summary of the balance sheet as of the end of the year for the general fund, which also includes the special education fund. Between 22 and 23, there weren't any significant changes. Pretty comparable between the years. The governmental fund balances had a total net increase, kind of net income of 785,000. That's across all funds. The biggest component of that was the general fund did see an increase of about $450,000. The biggest driver for that was the ESSER grants that you received during 22-23. And because of that extra money, then you guys applied 270,000 towards the 23-24 budget. Because as you know, those funds are coming to an end. So be able to at least kind of utilize some of that in the current year budget. Overall, the general fund's fund balance is healthy. There's a district policy to maintain at least 15% of fund balance to cover 15% of next year's budgeted expenses. So the district was at 25% as of the end of 23. So within that policy, and that's total fund balance. A few districts will have the policy only relate to unassigned fund balance because there are some of those funds that are earmarked already for specific purposes. But even if you did just the part that was not assigned, you'd be about 22-23%. So within the district's policy, and healthy fund balance. Total revenues and expenses, I won't go into too much detail of this. But I mean, overall, I think revenues and expenses for general fund, special ed fund were pretty comparable between years. Biggest change was the ESSER money that you guys had in 22-23. So that federal revenue will likely decrease, significantly next year without those grants. But otherwise, expenses remain pretty comparable. Just kind of overall inflation costs, I think, were the biggest drivers. Nothing really out of the ordinary for those expenses. Same with the tax levy. You guys probably look at that, regularly, but that was about 25% of the total revenue for 22-23. Right in line with where it's supposed to be, the state sets a limit on the amount that you can levy every year, and the district was in compliance with that. Debt service, the state also puts a cap on the amount of general obligation debt that the district can have. So as of the end of 23, you still had about 78% remaining of your debt capacity. And that is just general obligation debt. I don't believe that includes would include any referendum related debt too, I guess, if that's general obligation debt. And then for kind of the findings and comments that we had during the audit, there was a material weakness due to a lack of segregation of duties. We have that every single year in 99% of the school districts we audit. So just to make you guys aware that risk is out there in a small business office, that there's a risk that, controls could be circumvented, but we didn't, come across anything. Is the more often you can segregate duties though in the office, or the more oversight the board can have, just the better. Decreases some of those risks. We did have one new finding this year, just related to a large journal entry that we had to make. That did not affect your federal or state awards at all. That additional $240,000 that you guys levied for debt payments, the original intent, I believe, was to put that towards the debt in 22-23. Instead, it was moved to a CD and then will be applied in a future year. So we just had to do a journal entry to move it from expense to cash. Otherwise, couple just comments. We'd recommend taking a look at your capitalization policy and increasing that. Right now it's at $2,500 for all fixed asset purchases, and recommend increasing that to $5,000 just to align with the federal guidelines. That might be something to take a look at that policy in the future. And then right now, the journal entries that like Danielle posts are not reviewed by anyone. That could have actually changed already in 23-24, but we just recommend having somebody take a look at those initial that they've been reviewed and approved just because of that lack of segregation of duties. And then the other one that we had in there, that could have been done already in 23-24, but if you have excess money from the referendum project, once all the bills are paid, DPI requires that any of that extra money be transferred to the referendum related debt service account and used to pay down that referendum debt. So, once, I don't know if all those bills are paid, but then kind of a transfer just gets made to pay down that debt. But otherwise, the audit went really well. There's a lot to that bookkeeper job. And Danielle did a great job having things recorded where they were supposed to, getting everything ready for the audit. It went really well. You know, the reports, if you guys are getting financial reports on a monthly basis, you know, we didn't make a lot of changes to those. So you're looking at real-time accurate information, which is great. That was all I had. Any questions or?
When did we have leftover money from the elementary school remodel?
As of June 30th, 2023, there was. I don't know the dollar amount. I know that Danielle said there were a few bills left to pay in 23-24, maybe some landscaping.
Okay.
So then once you know you have all of those, then yeah, that money will be
She's
transferred.
aware of that then.
Yep, I talked to her about it at the end of the audit.
Well, it sounds like potentially for the board, there's two things, the capitalization increase.
Mhm.
Is that and that's a board policy?
That's a board policy, yep.
So we'll have to take that up and audit or finance, I guess. And then journal entry review, I've seen at my work that the board treasurer reviews the journal entries.
You're looking at me like I'm the board treasurer.
He is looking at you, isn't he?
The board treasurer?
There is no treasurer.
Head of the finance committee. Or, you know, the clerk could be me, but that somebody would, as just part of the dual controls, you know, to satisfy that requirement. I know it's a pain, but.
And it
it's
could
just
be
one more
somebody on
step.
the board or somebody in the business office, just as long as you want somebody that knows what they're looking
Right.
at and not just initialing because
They have
you
to
put it in
hold-
front of them.
They have to hold like a certain education level or
No.
certification, no?
Nope, I think Amanda could do it if you wanted to. It could be Mitch, could be Andy. But somebody that would understand the rationale behind posting those journal entries.
Right, well, we can talk about it.
Maybe like a monthly review or just as they come up or?
Probably monthly, I would say.
Yeah.
Just in case anything, you have questions on anything, then address them sooner than later.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a ton of journal entries made. A lot of them are probably gonna be ACH deposits. You know, they gotta get recorded somehow in the system, or transfer of cash between two bank accounts.
Can they be digitally signed? I can do it then. It's not gonna require every other day trips to the school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't see in the board packet, that the school board actually approves the audit, but the audit in some level is the board asking for an audit to make sure that, the district's on the up and up, right?
Yeah.
To the taxpayers.
Yeah,
So I'd recommend that we vote on it moving forward. I don't know if we have in the past or not, but
I don't think we have, but
I would recommend that the board, votes to approve the audit.
Approve it or accept it?
Approve it.
What?
Except, approve the audit, accept the audit results. It's the same thing.
And the audit is required by the state.
Right.
And just a reminder too, that, we're doing a financial statement audit, not a forensic fraud audit. So, if we come across anything that looks out of the ordinary, we bring that up.
Right.
Our focus is mainly the financial statements themselves and compliance testing.
Mhm.
That capitalization policy, do most districts use 5,000 or is it? Do they use 5,000?
Most do 5,000.
And you said that's the federal recommendation?
That's a federal guideline, yep,
Okay.
for capitalizing and depreciating assets.
So the levied amount for early debt defeasance, we had that expensed in 22-23.
Yep, it was originally in an expense account. Cause I
So is
think the
that-
intention was to pay it down right away, put it into the escrow and pay it down, and then I think there was advisement
Bonds are
to
not
wait.
callable, so
Yeah.
that's why I had to do that.
So that won't affect our funding on that expense for this year.
And that was in a debt service fund, not the general fund. So,
Yeah.
yep, it won't affect any of that.
Then on the 270 for assigned fund balance that we were gonna use in the preliminary budget. If we don't use that, that'll just get moved back to unassigned automatically.
Yep, management just makes a decision, let us know how much to assign for that, so you can unassign it at any time.
One thing I did notice that I wanted to point out, more so for all the people that are listening, and the board is if you look at the chart that measures fund balance to next year's budget expenses, we were actually lower for budgeted expenses in 23-24 than the number that was used for the 18-19 number, with CPI of 12% in that same period. So for those people that think we're just spending money willy-nilly, or we don't need every dollar we ask for, we've reduced expenses in 5 years with CPI at 12% in that time frame. So just something to note that people ask why we need more money, and that's just one of 70 reasons.
Any other questions about the audit? All right, thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Gwen.
guys.
Thank you.
Mitch, I don't see it being a huge problem to make that an action item in the future to vote to accept the audit.
Sure.
Good. Next is a report on the School Board Association Convention. Those of you who don't know, it's held every January in Milwaukee, and the whole board went this year. Went to different workshops ranging from how to save money to how to improve academics to how to keep staff, how to pass a referendum, how to evaluate a superintendent, kind of basically all the things that school boards do. We basically heard from experts in the field on how best to do that. So it's a great way for us to kind of get some ideas on how to serve the district better as a school board. I guess I just want to open the floor for anyone who just wanted to just say a few words about their experience, especially people who were there for the first time. Whether they thought it was worthwhile.
I thought it was incredibly worthwhile, especially to have a number of us go. Every session I went to wasn't great, but there was enough good ones that I think we would certainly be missing out if we only had one or two representatives there trying to pick the perfect session each time. And on top of that, I think it was invaluable the time as a board we were able to spend together in terms of collegiality and stuff like that. So I would definitely go again.
Yeah, that sentiment too. It's really helpful. And it's a good calibrator. It's like really specific board content to talk about our real life conversations that we have about board decisions. Be able to calibrate on some of the things that just that much more information be able to consider.
I think a lot of districts, I think Andy, you called this out too, where it's like they're just starting down the journey of a lot of things. Mineral Point's already had in place for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So like districts are just starting to talk about reading curriculums in the elementary school, and we put one in place 2 years ago. So that's just kudos to the district and teachers and principals. So that was good to see.
I would agree with that, but then there are also times where you hear about something a school is doing and you're just like, oh, wow. We have some opportunities to continue to improve. I mean, one of our neighboring school districts had a presentation on how they engage the student body in their school board meetings and how they have basically a student body representative who has a seat at the table, and how they report back then to a student group that's made up of a representative from basically every club and activity throughout their high school, so that they have a, kind of this conduit for communication. And I thought that's, we can learn something from everyone we interact with.
Okay.
Joelle was one of the presenters.
Yeah, and I thought it was very good. I'm just grateful we all had the chance to go and represent the district. So I thought that was good. All right. Segue into that would be shortly after we went to the convention, we held kind of a retreat that was a lot of debriefing of those ideas and kind of crystallizing what things we want to focus on over the next several months. So everyone got the summary that I sent out, I'm hoping. Talked about, had some assigned tasks for Mitch and myself and kind of each committee. Just some examples. We're going to make a plan to kind of reboot the strategic plan this summer, and hopefully invite some stakeholder representatives and pick a date and facilitator, and hopefully get something done by the end of the summer. We talked about making maybe some more concrete goals for academics and like get from here to here by this date, kind of goals. So we'll be working on that. Talked about ways to maybe recruit new teachers and explore how to grow our own through student teaching and various incentives to get people to go into education. Let's see, we talked about maybe updating our operational assessment for the district to make sure that we're doing everything as efficiently and cost effectively as possible. We're going to be talking about food service options later in the meeting. And then we had some ideas for finance committee on how to maybe save some money on the budget, or, in terms of like employee benefits, specifically with different like health insurance options, those kind of things. Okay. Any more comments on that document, or just continue to reference that going forward? Yeah. All right. Next is building administrator reports. So go first.
All right. Wow. We'll switch one of these days. As I'm passing out a comparison of fall data and and winter data. If I'm around there next week. On one side, you can see fall, one side, you can winter. I'll just kind of show you the testing we just got done completing for Star and Bathbridge. From there, it's a couple are high graphs and a couple are bar. We just went through this week. I was staffed from there. Go through a couple of things. So a couple of things celebrations wise before I get started quick. I know we're not here, but I thought I'd celebrate with her as well too. She set up our author visit last week for Aaron Soderbergh Downing. We had a program set for 3rd through 8th grade. So 6th, 7th, 8th graders came down and were able to join in. So she did an amazing job setting up. So I want to thank her that she did a great job. Overall, like that was a huge success. The students loved it. We did move around a few bleachers and kind of made us a little more of a great opportunity to have her talk with the group. So it was kind of a fun way to celebrate the book that she just published from there too. Other celebrations, we just some things around the building was we just finished up roller skating. So we started roller skating a couple years ago. Kids love it. We did about 2 weeks from there from Mr. Martin, Mr. Olson. We celebrated our 100th day of school on Friday. Kindergarten loved it. There was a really good showing of dress up from there. So we did the announcements in the kindergarten. And I know that a bunch of the pre-K kids, we get to do that next year. So they're really excited to join in the fun each year of kindergarten 100th day celebration. So just a few things around elementary school that way. If you go back to data wise, so you can kind of see the comparisons. So again, across the board, again, numbers were looking great. Just to kind of compare from fall to winter from our numbers wise. So again, you can kind of look back and forth, kind of see where we're at. A lot of, again, showing growth into the green. The green number is at 50%, so at or above benchmark. So again, some numbers were going up in each level of math and reading. So a couple things will be, I want to dig into more of just, there was some slight changes in kindergarten. So I'll obviously look more into that in detail of fall and winter, those numbers, to see where the difference was. Because if you look at fall reading for kindergarten, we had 34 at or above, and winter we had 15 from there. So just kind of look at numbers and kind of see, digging into more data of what those factors are from there. But again, it's in the process of the whole year to see where they're at and where we're going. But a lot of great things, we keep digging into benchmark for our second year of reading curriculum. Obviously, again, continuing into that process of providing more opportunities for teachers for PD and everything else. I think obviously we're doing well to increase our numbers in the right direction. So I'm really pleased on where we're at, where we're going, and we'll kind of go from there. So any questions?
Green is at or above grade level?
Yeah.
So-
Anything? Just go ahead.
I was just gonna ask a question about kindergarten reading. So it looks like they were really high in the fall
Yep.
and then dropped quite a bit.
That's one I said I'm going to dig into more of where the numbers are. And
Do you have like when we talk about like I guess, or like what's your suspicion there?
I have not been able to dig more into it just because I've got a few other things coming up on my.
Got it. I was looking for
Yeah,
general.
so I
idea.
know Ms. Schrader and Ms. Eaton back when we were going through it, had said they saw the same pattern last year.
Okay.
And I'm guessing, or what we're guessing, and we haven't gone through it, is we use a phonological awareness program called Haggerty. And I'm guessing that the sequence of Haggerty doesn't hit the same benchmarks that are tested in the winter. But through that program, they're all hit by the end of the year, because it dipped down last winter too, but at the end they were back on track where we were supposed to be. So I think it might be something within the sequence of the program, both either benchmark and or Haggerty, which we use as a supplement. The sequence of those two with the skill that then is assessed in the winter
Yep, that makes sense.
is what I would guess.
I had the same question.
Do these numbers represent, not the percentages, but the hard numbers represent or include students who are in our special education programs? And if so, are they measured by the standard benchmarks or by individualized benchmarks for?
They include, I think there's 2 students in elementary school that do not take the assessment. One of them takes the alternate standardized assessment. One wasn't appropriate. But it does include all of the students, and it is the same grade level benchmark that everybody else is held accountable for. So I think in the fall or in the spring, what Mr. Well, and I will do is we then go back, not only look at who met the benchmark according to STAR, but then we add a layer with our reading specialists and special ed teachers about if they didn't meet the benchmarks according to STAR, who did meet their annual progress towards their goal that was set with their individual reading.
There was discussion maybe a year ago about updating our math curriculum. Is that still
Not at the elementary.
not at the elementary?
It's for
Okay,
middle-
middle school, got
Middle
it.
high. Because if you look at the math sheets, there was growth in every grade except that kindergarten grade. Fall to winter in the math. And I do know Mr. Renwick has spoke highly of the math program that they have in place.
They already had the math. They didn't have the reading. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to just looking at the Fastbridge STAR data. It's hard to dispute a math curriculum that has 69% of the kids at or exceeding grade level for the winter data. And another 20% at. The blue is at, or the blue is
On watch.
on watch? Okay.
Is it at grade level for this time of year based on the scope and sequence, or is it like they hit the content that they need to know by the end of this year?
At this point.
At this point?
And do the kids in the red and yellow get some form of intervention?
The red is our main focus for our intervention. The yellow based on, where our availability is.
Okay.
Also possibly, but it's usually bent or going towards more the teacher with WIN groups, from there with the yellow.
All of these kids are the same. There wasn't like a transfer out of kindergarten. To transfer out and to transfer in. Well, it's who's ever in the grade level at the time when we give the assessment. So it's for the most part, the same students that were here in the fall, but if anybody moved in November, the new one, that might be why there's 60 in winter and there was only 58 in the fall, it's because who gets moved in.
Other things, playground plans. I've met with many students. I do have one company, Boland Rec, out of Wisconsin. I think they're out of Cambridge. I've actually been working with that group, company for a few weeks now. They did give me some layouts, designs, and some pricing. I'm trying to get a couple more companies just to give some comparison. When I get all those together, I would like to bring it to just operations. Here's some ideas. I'll probably have a few more meetings with students in the next few weeks. Just here's some plans I have. I had one on my announcements this morning, and they were all like really excited to talk more about it. So I'll dig into more with the student groups of just who has questions, thoughts, ideas from there as well too, just as we move forward. But eventually I'll bring it to operations to show you what I have built, and then from there we can decide what route we want to go.
We're gonna meet March 7th if that works.
Or I should have more of that done by then. Summer school, I'm working on, Matt and I are trying to figure out summer school enrichment, schedule wise. We should have some more things planned out, soon to share out for ideas and, for staff wise, plan out for summer. As of right now, we are planning on June. A lot of times we do in July. We're trying to connect both summer enrichment and the activities, the sports side of it together to kind of have a schedule that way. We'll work back and forth. We're trying to brainstorm and just put them all together to have students have access to both within that time frame. Well,
Smart.
right. Kids Club, any questions? Like I haven't,
Any updates on the surveys that are going out?
I have not. I think it went out, but I don't know if Joelle had.
I don't know if she's received any.
I haven't
Back.
gotten anything.
Okay. I will follow up with her. She
Okay.
was out today. I will follow up with her.
So the parent survey went out
It was-
recently.
And I was.
I know there was conversations about questioning the questions and some of those kinds of things. So I think if it hasn't gone out, it's ready to go out. But like I said, I will follow up with Joelle tomorrow.
On this stuff, it's great, you know, great to have the data. If you could, moving forward, put the, you know, fall reading and winter reading on the same
Yeah. if that helps.
page,
Sure.
it's just helpful because it's hard to look back and forth and
Sure.
make it make sense. And then I think, if you can put a key, you know, of what green means and blue means and
Perfect.
yellow means for us, and then, if it's possible to just put the goals, because I know you came up with the goal,
Yep.
like at the beginning of the
Yep.
year. It's hard for us to remember.
Yeah.
4
It was
months
actually- I was
later.
gonna do- It was the last page and it was an even number, so I just, I didn't
Yeah.
do that last page.
Okay, well, you know, like maybe put the goal and then we've got that for reference point. I think that would be perfect.
Okay.
And then we'd like have everything we need. And then I know timing is hard with these meetings and stuff, but when you find a big discrepancy like that with the kindergarten, you know, just to kind of research it before the meeting, if you have time.
Was real preoccupied.
Yeah, I understand. Yep.
Are the teachers feeling about the new curriculum? They're still good? Are they still getting coaching?
We are, and we're hoping to set a few more hours, next Friday.
Okay.
For PD, just to kind of get some more background in some areas that we want to get more on.
Okay.
So, and I think, going forward, we're like obviously pretty close to set on our component for next year for Act 20. We're very likely going into keys of reading to be the component that we will go through CISA 3 with Jim Addison as our main person that we'll go through. Kind of our main part of what we'll do for our, making sure our requirements are met for Act 20.
Great. And there's one more set of testing in the spring, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So,
Right.
I have two packets here for you. You can kind of lay them side by side to look for the fall data and then the winter data. You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, thanks. It's very helpful. How about one more pass?
Okay.
Oh, Erin, sorry.
Oh,
Oh, you already got one.
oh,
Okay.
Oh, well,
yeah,
yeah.
we're good.
And you-
everybody gets to.
What do I gotta do? Okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay, so I'm sure kind of looking through here a little bit. You can see I was printing off, I tried to minimize the paper usage as much as possible, so it doesn't line up perfectly. So you can see our overall growth with the STAR assessment. It hasn't changed a lot with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade moving that proficient up. So again, we still have the same benchmark as the 50 percentile is up. Our teachers chose to focus on 3 standards, which are actually 6 standards because it includes the fiction and the nonfiction pieces. There's something that we noticed is, well, one, this work is going to take a long time because we're trying to shift some of our teaching, and we also are realizing that 1 grade level has common planning time. The other 2 grade levels do not have common planning time. So we're trying to utilize the PLC time every single time we can, but we do have other commitments and things that are being planned. So that does make this work pretty tough. So they're looking at these standards. They're trying to find articles that fit with these. They're pre-assessing the skill, teaching it, assessing, and reassessing. So 1 grade level right now is their intervention block. They're focusing on these skills for some reteaching. So they still are doing comprehension strategies like in the past, but they're focusing on these standards that are being addressed. So that's 1 grade level. They've had some great success. So kids who were testing under these standards in all red at fall, they're already moving. So if we turn to the winter where we are looking at the breakdown here, where we have this page and we have the fall. And then down here is the projected growth from the fall under each of the 3 standards. So if we look at these, the standards that are being hit, we can see that when we're explicitly teaching these and assessing them, we're moving them from, like in the fall, under the 6th grade. We started at the beginning, we have 19 students who are underneath that beginning level. And then already in the winter, we're at 9. The projected growth was to have 5. So we're above, where we should be at this point. And if you can look down and you can see we're moving kids from that beginning level to the developing. So that developing kind of fluctuates a little bit as we move them out of the beginning stage and then out of that to the proficient level. One thing that we're noticing is even though we have these numbers that are changing and growing, it didn't affect our overall scores like we thought that they would be. But as of right now, we haven't hit every single standard yet. So it does kind of make sense. And it also, we aren't focusing on every standard at this point. We just picked 3. So it shows that this is really good work. We need more time to be able to try to get our teachers to find these resources to be using. So it can impact our overall goal scores. Do you have any questions on all of that right now?
How are the students receiving, do the students understand why they might be getting a different type of, like, they're asked to read an article and identify the main points and things? Do they understand why they're being asked to do that? Or they connecting the dots?
So far, because we haven't, it's been in reading class. Our original goal was to branch it out to history, math, and science, and then even into our electives. However, because the time is crucial, we're sticking within our reading. So it's kind of just been the thing that has been done. And so I don't think it's a lot different. It's just, it's assessed more frequently to see how kids are actually doing. So I kind of think of it as in math, you have those quick checks, those quizzes to see who has it and who doesn't. That's what these are. So that way, when we get to the tests, we have an idea of who's going to have it and who doesn't. Reading's really tricky because are we assessing skills, foundational skills, and they just aren't able to understand the article that we have? Or is it the specific standard that is confusing? So there's a lot that goes behind reading. And so much of it is up here and just, it's hard to get all of that out. That's why our teachers are really good about conferring and having other ways to find out what is going on. Do you have any other questions?
I did.
That does kind of go to one of my goals though. One of the goals is how do we get middle school students more involved in their teaching or in their learning? And that could be, we are doing this because having those conversations with students, talking about maybe more standard language a little bit here and there when something is tricky, or why are we using this article, or why are we coming back to this standard again? Just so they know that.
The projected growth based, the STAR generate that projection?
Yes, from our
Based on the
fall,
standard?
from our fall assessment, yes.
So couple dumb questions.
No, they're not.
I mean, the middle school seems to be doing remarkably well in math.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I didn't even get to math yet, yeah.
Right, I know.
Yeah,
So is there a specific reason why the reading numbers are so much lower? I mean, is it just harder benchmarks to reach, or is it some residual from the elementary school transition to a new curriculum and then COVID and or
I think a lot of it is all of that. The other thing is when kids are doing the math problem and you're asking them to do it, you can see step by step where it goes wrong. With reading, there's so much that's going on.
right?
So we are finding we use FastBridge, and while we are looking at the standards of where they currently need to be, we still have students who need foundational skills who are in that first grade level range. So it makes it really difficult to say it's this when we know that there's a deficiency somewhere else. So I think when we look at math, it's just so much different. It's just, you can really see the breakdown when learning is just breaking down and reading. A lot of it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Do we have enough resources to bring these kids with foundational reading deficiencies
So
out by the end of 8th grade?
that's been the tricky part, is when do we pull them? And having the staff to like fully support all the different ranges. So we have times in our day and our staff all has groups during that time. Like right now, if you need help with science or social studies, everybody's booked. Because everybody's kind of pitching in for reading and math.
Have you looked into like outside programs like foster grandparents through Southwest Cap to come in and tutor kids during the day?
No.
Not a real great evidence base for that.
Okay.
It might be great if there's no other option.
We have some students who are, it's more for math. We have some students who are tutoring some math. Some middle schoolers in math right now. And they've been ones who have routinely shown that they, are capable.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see them stepping in and figuring out this kid is a hands-on learner. That's why it's not working, But again, reading is just telling a kid to read isn't going to get to the answering the standard correctly, or if it is a foundational piece.
What kind of supports do we have in place right now?
So right now we have like our 6th grade team. There's one teacher and we pair up and we take the ones who have the most reading difficulties to support them. So I'm kind of in between. If we have a student who just needs explicit instruction and progress monitoring, that would go to me. That's what I did before this role. It has proven to be much more difficult to fit it all in.
When you transitioned to being the middle school principal, did we basically become short a reading interventionist?
Well, we were trying to see, could I do it all in the day?
Yeah. I think to me, and I'm not casting any blame here at all. I think this is the really important stuff to me and why the board is here. If we need to designate resources to this, then I think we should do that, or know about it, like what the resources these kids need to get them caught up by the end of 8th grade. This is troubling to me, and it's not casting blame. I think it's just where these kids are at, and especially if we basically sacrifice the reading interventionist position, and now we're seeing the results of that here.
I think our scores were relatively the same the past few years.
Sure, but I guess we
And I
could,
think a lot of that could be back to what you're saying is we didn't have a reading program at the elementary.
Yeah.
Act 20 with all the steps that they're taking, hopefully kids, by the time they get up to the middle school, will have solid foundational pieces
Mhm.
in place. So before I was hired, there wasn't anybody at the middle school providing intervention besides just reteaching on the teacher side. So I feel like it's still happening. I haven't not met with people because of my job.
I guess I would say it's not for me to decide, what the middle school needs, but it is for me to ask, what do you need so that we can get this kids caught up? And so if you do feel like there's resources that are missing, we would love to hear about it because, that's the way that we can help.
Thank you. I think that's huge. And yeah, I mean, when we've looked at our data, it's also that piece of you're doing it. And that's why we did this building goal, because we have more say in this specific standard. But I'm hopeful that when we keep putting in the work for this, we'll see it pay off by the end of the year. But we'll see. More to be continued. But if you do look at where we have been putting in our work, it is paying off right now. So this is more like this is all grade level things. So those students who do have those foundational skills missing.
There has been some growth,
There has been.
yeah, from fall and winter, so
Mhm.
that's good.
Yeah, I think you took the first step in measuring like the baseline. I think next month, come back with what you think we need. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And we can,
I do think Will makes a really good point though about, maybe Mitch, this is to you is, at the elementary level, in the winter, we're 52% at proficiency on reading, but 69% proficiency on math. The middle school, follows similar trends and that has been that way for a while. So, it sounds like we as a board would be receptive, and budget's always an issue, but if you told us we need to find ways for additional resources to support reading, and if that means additional interventions in some way, like the numbers clearly tell us we have an opportunity to do better there, or to support that more completely.
Mhm.
Make you think back to June, when we had a meeting and someone was invited to the table and Dr. Dunn asked, all things considering, money's not an issue. What do you need?
What was that?
And an interventionist, full-time interventionist at the middle school was the ask. And then I won't say 14 eyes turned towards me, but probably 10. What are you going to do? And my response was, if you would like me to try to give you as close to a balanced budget as I possibly can, I can't afford to replace that position. But when we have our admin meetings, we talk about, if this is what you think you need, then you bring it forward. I'm not going to tell you not to. You need to bring it forward so that we can have that conversation here moving forward and saying, is this the hire of another staff member? And if so, then we will try to make it happen in the upcoming budget, with the board's blessing. But, that's where we are. That is the accurate piece. I've spent some time as a middle school administrator in my career as well, and reading and math. There's different benchmark scores there, and those are standard. One is a little bit stronger than the other. And to Brooke's point, obviously, it's easier to see. You don't understand how to add fractions. It's not easy to see. You don't understand tell me why you don't understand what the main point of this paragraph is. What's the topics? It's harder to pick those things out. And the other beauty with middle school kids is one day you get a middle school student who, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to show you I do my best. And then the next day they don't care what best looks like. And you have a little bit of that as well. But no, I would hope all my building administrators would say, if there's things that you think you need, I want you to come forward with those requests. So they're not being stopped at any point.
I don't want to take the whole lot of your time, but just to review the supports on reading. So there's like there's a remedial reading class. No. What do they call it, reading strategy?
We have math strats.
You have math strats, you don't
Math
have reading
strats,
strats.
no,
Correct.
no.
Okay,
And math strats is only at 7th grade level.
all right. And I know you don't want to pull kids from other subject matters. What about struggling kids that have study halls? Are we able to maximize that time spent
If they have a study hall that lines up, yes.
with a staff person
Yeah.
or, okay,
Which our staff that would be me. It would have to come to me because our staff, basically, we have multiple that are on overloads already.
What instructional materials are you using in the 6th to 8th grade reading?
For reading, they're using the standards and they're really focused on trade books and trying to get good quality literature into kids' hands and applying these strategies to the books that they're reading. So as far as like curriculum, there is not.
There's not like a set of standardized instructional materials that.
No, just the
everybody starts with, like,
standards
a
guide
foundation.
everything. Yeah.
Trying to create lifelong readers instead of telling somebody they have to read The Grapes of Wrath and enjoy it.
You didn't like the Grapes of Wrath?
Not in 8th grade, I didn't. I should probably reread it as an adult.
You should.
But if we do turn to math, then I mean, our math scores are looking great. Lots of growth from fall to winter. One thing that I want to point out in the 8th grade group, so if you look differently, you can even see like the total students tested, I guess, on the fall, the winter maybe that was cut off. But there are 9 students in 8th grade who take high school math. And we chose not to have them tested during this time because our assessments are impacting our instruction. And because that assessment is not used at the high school, we did not want to test just to test. And they were taking a final that week anyway. So
is that just for the winter?
that's just for the winter. So that does
That's what it is,
impact, yes, that does impact that right there. Yeah,
Okay.
but they did I talked with them. They would like to take it in the spring just so they can see their own individual growth. So we'll see that again in the spring.
Okay. A little asterisk on the 8th grade.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
I'm glad you said something because I was like, no, they dropped. There's actually a little bit of drop
Well,
in grade level.
I looked at that also and I said,
Right.
whoa, how could that be? And then I remembered those 9, we decided not to have them
Okay,
test.
yeah, that would swing it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some goals that we have, we already talked about the reading goal, how we can get more support for our reading programs or our reading teachers, students. But we also want to create more time for vertical alignment for math 5-12, and for our 2 middle school math teachers to meet and plan. We currently have a retired math teacher who is, and he talked a lot about how even though the 6th and the 7th and 8th grade teacher, they're not teaching the same curriculum, but he told me how valuable that was to run ideas past, or I got to this point, how in depth did you get? And it just said having that common planning time was very helpful. So I put that as a goal that I would like to have. When we meet 5-12, it's really amazing to see when they're hitting a standard and how in depth they're hitting a standard. So that work is really valuable. Like I said, right now we've been trying to focus on reading because that's where our focus should be. So we haven't gotten back to that, but hopefully in the future, maybe even next year, that might be a goal for that. We would like to continue to meet 5-12. Other than that, some positive things, we took 16 middle school students down to the elementary to hand out ice cream for the Pennymore Challenge. And you would have thought we gave them the world. And then I realized middle schoolers are not put in given that they don't have the opportunity to go down to the elementary very often. And so Matt, Tom, Angie, and I have talked about how we can get more middle schoolers involved at the elementary, because they would come back and they would tell their teacher, that was the best time I've ever had in the office. And all I said was, hey, I was wondering if you'd like to give out ice cream to elementary kids. I gave them the world that day. So that's one thing. I work a lot of all the boys varsity games. So often I hear or people ask me questions about the board in the cafeteria around the sources of strength, and other towns are asking also. So I think that's kind of cool that people from Darlington were like, what is that? Why do you have that up there? And so I was like, it's a little snip of the evidence of things that we're doing around sources of strength. And then they ask what it is. And usually, how can we get that in our school? So I think that's been pretty cool. And then another positive, Tom Steger and Dan Burson ran a trivia day to connect staff at all 3 buildings. And so they led it. There was so much laughter, a lot of emails back to say, thank you for providing that time for us to get together. And I didn't have time for it, but I was really glad I did it. So that's been really nice also. So we have things that we need to keep working on. There's a lot of also really good things going on as well.
Any other questions, comments?
I think the action is for next month. Sorry to cut you off.
Nope, I think you're going there.
Spell out what you think you need to fix what needs to be fixed.
Support
Yeah.
what's going on. I also don't, yeah, we'll do that. In the morning to talk about it. I'll get back to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How fast do you think I can get this? No, I don't have the data like this, obviously. I'm gonna talk briefly. Last week, we went to the second day of the measures that matter, or the portrait of a graduate, 720 days, whatever Cece's calling it. That was really cool. We got to meet with a panel of local organizations, businesses, to talk about what they're seeing. We showed them what we had. Really dig into some of those other skills that they're looking for. No surprise, some of them are, we just need people to show up on time. Like, can we get them to show up on time, be there consistently? So it was a neat day to actually sit down and kind of review some of that data with an organization, and just kind of get some questions back and forth with them as we start to look and continue to build what that looks like. So I shared that last month. Not a ton of updates to that, still digging through data when I get chances to. Any questions on that?
When you were participating in the conversations around Portrait of a Graduate,
Yeah.
Referencing back to our WASB, I had an opportunity to listen to a speaker from, I believe it was Cambridge. And they had shared what they're doing and how they're tapping into an external company or an external organization that pulls all of that data together for them into a dashboard.
Okay.
I think it's called One Wisconsin. Is that something I'm not seeing? Okay, I will.
They haven't brought anything up.
I will find that presentation from
Yeah,
WASB and
please
forward
do.
it on.
I think it's similar to that Redefine Ready.
Yeah.
Type
Yeah,
data.
and there's portrait of a graduate, there's where CISA calls that 720 days. It's they're the same thing, but it's just kind of their own spin on it. But
The idea was that you tell somebody what we want for data once, and then they continuously create it, as
Yeah.
opposed to you having to find this data from this spreadsheet and then look over here to get the rest.
I'm a scientist guy, so I don't mind too much. Yeah, I know what you're saying though.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
go back
please
to
do.
the WASB section and
Please
and
do.
provide
I'd
that.
like to see. Always good. ACT boot camp starts tomorrow. Met with all the juniors this morning. That is a 4-week process, 3 days a week. They rotate through each subject with our local experts. We look back over time. You'll see a lot of programs that'll say, we'll guarantee you 2 points. Well, I can guarantee you 2 points. If you pay attention, we can guarantee you a lot more than that. We've had kids go up by 8, 9 points before. On average, it's around that 2 from their previous or their practice test to the final test. So that starts tomorrow. Steering advisory 3 days a week for the next 4 weeks. And then the ACT is on March 12th. So that is coming up. But we have great local experts that really dig into what each one of those groups needs to be more successful. So we're very fortunate that way. Had a couple actually other schools reach out about what are we doing for that. So we've kind of just explained what that looks like here.
That's what I was gonna ask, do we benchmark like the other high schools to see like how they do boot camps and?
I've talked to a lot of them. A lot of them don't have, they have like some will have like a option for kids to come in and do things or things like that, where it's not like us where we actually require all juniors to do it. We've seen some pretty good success over that. We have, when did it start? 2015 is when it was mandated,
Yeah.
I think. So we have, 9 years worth of data. We've used the same pretest, so we really know kind of where kids are starting and how that looks. And I share all that pre-starting data as a class where they're at, so they can see other years and see where they're at. And so yeah, we had that talk this morning. That starts tomorrow. So
We pretty consistently rank in the top 3 in CISA.
for
For ACT
the
scores?
ACT, yes.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's right top 3. I think it's number 2 over that time span. But yeah.
With a healthy competition.
Oh yeah. Well, we still want to be number 1. Just asking my local experts. On that 12th, the only thing I got to share on March 12th, we will be doing a freshman sophomore field trip. We're going to actually test here this year, smaller groups, hoping that'll help the focus and not be so crazy. We've been down at the church. We've done it in the gym. Now this year, Miss Brunson and I, we talked, and with Miss Klein, we said, well, let's try and do it smaller groups in the classroom. So we're talking 8 kids in a group. So just to kind of limit the distraction that way. So we're going to have a freshman sophomore field trip. One group's headed towards Southwest Tech, one group towards Madison. It'll be an intermixed field trip. They kind of get to sign up for what they want to do. Right now we have Southwest Tech, ETC, which is where we took the junior seniors last year. Hopefully Exact Sciences, the Dane County Humane Society has invited us up there for that. So there'll be kind of an intermix of different things. Over in Grant County, there's a water and sewer place that is another one, just to give some kids some different options to sign up for. The seniors will technically have a virtual scholarship day. That is when the local scholarship application comes out. It comes out like the day before. So Ms. Brunson said, I really need them to have a day to dig into that. And we said, great, that is a fantastic idea. So she wants to encourage them that day to work on the local scholarship, do any college visits if they have any last minute college visits that they want to do, or even go do a job shadow. So those are kind of the options she's giving them for that day, which I 100% support that way. So other than that, I don't have a lot. But I don't have started. So ACT data will be coming. Ooh, we have future freshman night on Monday night. That is coming up. Yep. That is Monday night. This will be our second one. We did our first one last year. So this will be the second one. So yeah, sent out an email to teachers and staff today about potentially getting some students to come and talk like we did last year. So that's next week. Yeah. So we're going to start scheduling. If you look over on my table, I've got my sticky notes trying to move things around, trying to fit the request of everybody, which is like a giant puzzle. So it's okay. But anything else? Sure, there's lots coming. End of the year, it's coming quick. So, all right.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, update on the EPI special ed cyclical indicators.
This is the same sheet that was in the board packet. But I thought it was maybe a good time just to kind of update you. So we are currently in the middle of what's called our cyclical indicator year, in special education, there are 17 indicators that are monitored, and they're monitored in different ways. Some of them are monitored every single year through what comes out as this, it's called the Joint Federal Notification Packet. This year's has not been released yet, but it assesses things like graduation rate and dropout rate and disproportionality and identification and some other things that they monitor every year. Some of them are data that we submit every year. So we submit our educational environmental codes. There's special ones for like transitioning from birth to 3 to school-based services. Are those done on time? Those are kind of all done every year. And then there's a portion that are done cyclically, and they often, or they always fall the year before our big self-assessment. So every 5 years or on a 5-year rotation, it's not always 5 years apart because you're kind of thrown in, but it turns out to be once every 5 years, you have to do an evaluation of your special education program. And it's really a compliance. Are you following the procedural compliance of special ed? The year before that compliance, you do these cyclical indicators. So we are in 3 of them right now. The first one is indicator 8. It's on parent involvement. It will be opening. I spent the afternoon kind of getting our notifications ready to go out to parents, but parents are invited to take a survey to give us feedback on how we engage them as a family in the process of special education. If there's, multiple parents in the household, it goes to both parents. The state sets a criteria. You must have a 10% return rate. Obviously, we shoot for much higher than that. And then we can use that for internal feedback purposes for ours. So that collection will open March 1st and it goes through June 30th. And then there's things in the system that I can kind of monitor who has returned or how many people have returned a thing. So we can do follow-up requests and emails and reminders and those things. But when the data comes to us, it is completely anonymous. Indicator 11 actually was finished this fall. It has to do with timely evaluation. So, anything background for special education, everything is very specific on you have to follow this procedure, and there's usually time-bound measures. So you get a referral. You have to have the next step done within so many days and the next step within so many days. And so they're monitoring. And one of the things is once we get consent from a parent to move forward with an evaluation, we must have the evaluation completed within 60 days. And that means all of our testing, sit down, have a meeting, develop a plan. So we have to submit things about, when the process started, when all these timeline things went out, and when the meeting was held. And so we were looking at last year's data. We had to submit all of our documentation for last year's data, and we were 100% compliant within that. And that was finished last September. And then the last one is this post-school outcomes. And I know I said earlier that these are cyclical, and these you have to. Indicator 14 is interesting because you can elect to participate in this every year. We always elect to participate. This has to do with 1 year after graduation, what are our graduates doing? So it gives us good internal feedback on, did we have you college or career ready? The measures for this are you have to have completed 1 full semester of college, any level of college, or you had to have been employed in a community integrated setting, making minimum wage for a minimum of so many hours a week for at least 3 consecutive months. That's how they measure a positive success rate. The reason we elect is it does let us know, are we getting our students ready? The options for this when we elect to participate is you can make the phone calls yourself within a district, or you can say, we want, I don't remember where it's St. something or other, St. Francis or some program to call and make the calls for you. We've always elected to do it ourselves. It's one of the tasks I do in the summer because they at least know my name. So the success rate is pretty good. The one benefit of participating every year is it's a different amount every year, but there is for every positive outcome we get a set amount of money. So this past year, because we had 5 exiters and 100% of them had positive outcomes, we now got $4,493 coming to our district. It will be here by June 30th that we can then use next year to continue our transition activities. So it's been a way for us to add some of those activities of transition without adding more costs to our budget. Plus it provides us the feedback. So that one will be opening. It always runs from June 30th or June 1st to September 30th. So it's always done over the summer. So in June, we will be calling the people who exited during the 22-23 school year. So it's always retroactive. They have to have been out of school for 1 full year before we can call them. So
This is 5 out of 5, meaning you had 5 total exiters and
Yes.
all 5 responded.
So we had 5 exiters last year. All 5 have met the positive outcome
Right.
of being gainfully employed for the 3 months or attending at least 1 semester of school.
I just thought that was impressive that you could track all of them down. You know, I would think at
So-
least half of them would be lost.
No,
to
we
follow up.
rarely lose one. There's parts of it which there's like levels, so we always reach out to the student first, and there's some different transition stuff where we actually collect their cell phone number and their personal email before they leave, so we
Yeah,
have a follow-up.
That's good.
And then we can also go on to the parent. So if I don't have a kid's contact or I can't get a former student, I usually call the parent and be like, what's the best way? Or can you have them call me? And, so we've always had really good success in being able to connect back with our students. There's been a few years where we maybe had 6 graduators, and I think there was 1 year where we had like 7 exiters and we had 5 positive outcomes because the person started school and didn't finish or had started a job and left a job. So again, it's not that we got a whole of them, but their outcome was deemed positive and met the satisfactory requirements.
Might be a dumb question, but to meet the criteria for this financial incentive, do all graduates have to have an IEP at the time of graduation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So these are students that were directly serviced through special education.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious how many students in elementary school have an IEP and still have one by the time they're a senior.
It's not all of them, because there are some services and there are some students that haven't, whatever their life, but in my personal family, 2 of them had IEPs for speech services and they both ended at some point in their career, so
they would be not.
They would
be part
not.
of this
These would
post-school
be
survey.
these are active students that have active plans at the time of graduation.
Do these numbers include students that are members of our options in education?
Yeah. So if there are students, not from other districts, but our students, we are fortunate to partner with some other districts, but as long as they graduated with a diploma that says Mineral Point, we follow up with them 1 year after graduation.
So in those cases, like when a neighboring school buys a seat from
They
us
would
in that
follow up
program,
with their
then
graduate.
Okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
because it stays their graduate, their students, yeah.
Thank you.
But yes, it's all students across the district. So I just thought I would give you guys a quick update on these cyclical indicators, so kind of one of the things that we're working on or working through this year. And then next year will be our procedural self-assessment year, which just basically means we basically review all of our files, kind of like an audit, and make sure that they met the criteria that the state says, here's the things you have to check for, so that we're doing what we need to do according to their criteria. So they'll be started next fall and done through the first part of next year. So any questions for me? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Budget comparison of January expenses.
So in your board book packet, you would see the date in last fiscal year with 47% of our budget had been expended. This year we're at 45% of our budget. So again, we're tracking. Usually it's within a percentage point here or there. Being 2% underneath is basically about the same position we were a year ago. So our expenses are running just how we would hope they would be running at this point in time in the school year.
Any questions or comments about the budget comparison? Okay. All right, next we'll get a report from the Finance Committee Chair Bush. You met on the 7th. I'm assuming minutes will be reviewed at the next regular meeting.
Sure.
Sure. Proceed.
Yes, we met, primarily for Dr. Nutter's presentation. Joni was in attendance and Rachel was in attendance. Really good presentation, I thought. It was good that Dr. Nutter provided some visuals. So he brought some glasses and filled them with water to represent various funding sources, and kind of represented our revenue limit as a glass and a glass with expense, and kind of showed how the state fills in with equalized aid, roughly up to 65% on average for us, and then the difference is our levy, and just kind of went through year over year some of the things that have come up that have changed things. Obviously, inflation, ESSER. One of the things I thought interesting is that it seemed to me that we always kind of had our hand on the pulse that these ESSER money were one-time deals and we're actually potentially in a lot of trouble here. And in his presentation, he kind of presented that not everybody was in that position, that it was kind of their senses were dulled by the ESSER money, and that because their numbers looked good and there was no deficit, they thought they were running well, and then the ESSER money went away. So I thought that was a nice part on Mitch and the board, that we were kind of always on top of that and concerned about that as another cliff. One of the big things he noted, there was a graph, and I've got a picture, but I will probably see if your picture is better, because I've also got part of Dr. Nutter in my picture. I'm not a great photographer, but he graphed from 15, 16 to 24, 25, actually, with an estimate of where it was at when he got the numbers. And I think 437 is the number he used for 24, 25, and then showed CPI each year, and then any revenue limit increases that we received. So over that time, CPI went up, including 24, 25, roughly 27%, and including our 325 next year, we would have received $1,004 in revenue limit authority. So there's roughly, if you use a $14,000 average per student right now, there's roughly a $2,000 deficit per student just in CPI versus what we were allowed in revenue limit increases. One of the other interesting things that I heard from him that was a little bit, I thought, of a different tone is he, although he wished we got more revenue limit increases and the state was helping us in that regard, he kind of pointed out a couple of times he thinks the state is doing their job. They're funding us at 65%. It would be better if they were funding special ed more like they were supposed to, but he kind of presented that it's kind of up to each district now. The state's giving their 65%, and that's why it's on each district to go to referendum if they want to do additional things, which I thought was interesting, because most of us, or I always blame the state, but it's usually about revenue limit stuff. But he did point out, and we all heard this, I think, at the convention. The other major point that I wanted to make was we keep hearing about the historic budget and the historic amount of money that went to education in the state biennium this year, and how that was all an equalized aid. So it all went into the glass first to make the amount of levy required lower, so it all went directly to the taxpayer. So they did provide more funding to education, but they really provided more funding to the taxpayers for education so that their levy was lower. It didn't actually create any new money for us beyond the 325 per student. So I think that's important to continue to remind people as they hear about how much money was put into education that it was, but it was actually to supplant what they're paying for education and to lower the mill rate in a lot of areas. The one thing that he noted in a lot of the information he had in your email was part of the presentation. I wasn't 100% aware that, equalized aid, a lot of it was based on ability to pay as far as equalized value. So like the districts, he referenced a district that is our size, but that has $1 billion in property value. So they receive almost no equalized aid because their mill rate is so low that their taxpayers are still probably paying a lower amount than our taxpayers are at 65%. So I wasn't entirely aware that it was, that there wasn't a set limit or a set number that each district got and then equalized from there, that there are districts out there because they're so wealthy that they don't receive any aid. So that was interesting to me, but I'll turn it over to the two of you if there's anything else you.
I think to that point, that's why the last two bienniums, a lot of money has gone into that, back to the property taxpayers. So those property wealthy school districts are seeing something that offsets what they're paying, that because they're not getting this much aid, it's going directly to the taxpayer for that reason.
Yeah, I think it's good practice to think about how to explain school finance to people when we know we're facing a referendum. I think the most interesting timeline, like if we can get the picture cleared up, I think that's like the perfect timeline. If you look at like 2010, they did some stuff. And then the CPI is pretty low and all of a sudden nothing's changing in terms of what a school can spend really. Just the cost just keeps going significantly out the roof. I think that's the reality that you just described really well and that we need more practice in getting specific about.
Yeah, you shared 6 out of the last 10 years, schools have not been able to, there's been nothing added to your revenue limit. You've not been able to increase anything 6 out of the last 10 years, which means you tighten your belt a little bit more. You try to get a little more creative. You might push off a remodeling project or a repair of some sort. You maybe don't hire somebody to fill a position. You do those kinds of things. And that's how school districts have kind of maintained the fact that they've not been given additional revenue limit authority.
So as Andy mentioned, Dr. Nutter used cups and water to talk about financing, but the bottom line is, if you think of it as a cup, our revenue limit is a cup and it can only hold so much. And our only option at this point in order to make that cup bigger is to go to referendum. And so it's not about managing expenses anymore. The expenses are growing. Even if we don't change anything and we just manage what we have, the expenses continue to grow and we have to find a way to increase the size of that cup, which our mechanism to do so is referendum.
It's that way by design.
Yes.
Yes. They want communities to locally contribute above whatever that need is.
Great, thank you. We'll go to action items.
I would ask for the board to consider jumping to action item number 5.
Okay.
Mickey Uppanaw is here and could answer questions about the district library plan. And that way she could excuse herself after that portion, if you're okay with it.
Learning a lot, it's okay. So the DPI requires that we have a board approved library plan in place. And our last plan had to do with policies and some of the other things that we did. And we've done a lot besides what's on our plan. So we decided to build a website, and that's what's included in your board packet. And
Bring it up, Rich.
this will be something that will be posted on our school library websites too, so that it's always accessible to anyone that would like to know what we're working on. It's not there yet. And the DPI follows the Future Ready Library framework. And so once
Can you share the screen so that the people in Zoom can see this, or? Thank you.
So the circle over on the left is the Future Ready library framework. And there's the wedges. While we do work in each wedge each year, and we do a lot of things in each wedge, we thought that our plan is to have goals in 3 different wedges each year. So we have our first goal is 2023 to 2025, or the first 3 wedges. This plan would be to 2023 to 2029. I guess it's 2024 now. But the goals that we are focusing on are literacy and learning centered by increasing our communication to staff and families through a variety of things like social media and newsletters and other ways that we can communicate what we are doing and what resources we have access to. We're looking into sponsoring a One Book, One School, whether that means like a district-wide One Book, One School to bring everyone together, or if it's by buildings. And developing plans to have student literacy leaders and influencers. And we've started that at the elementary school, and we're looking at ways to broaden that program. And another thing on there is the Wisconsin Science Festival, so that we can check off already. The next wedge that we're focusing on this cycle is facilitating professional development. And we're, Chris McCoy and Kristen Saber have already participated in the PBS Wisconsin Literacy Cohort, and I'm in that right now. So that is a meeting with PBS Wisconsin every month, and 2 Saturdays we get to go to campus. My next campus visit is going to be in the recording studio learning about filming. So it's super great. So that's so that we're all on the same page with our media and literacy plan through the district. Currently, we are investigating AI, and I think there needs to be a lot of policy work and investigation as how we apply it and how teachers are using it. So we are always advocating for keeping that in everyone's mind and doing some of the legwork and background work. So
Is your team kind of de facto taking the lead on that for the
Well,
district, or just?
we are just doing it just because we want someone to.
Right.
So, yeah, we want to work with whoever wants to work with us, or so that is something that's currently, it's really in our minds right now.
Mhm.
And then figuring out how to map out what educational technology we use as a district, and figuring out a way to have a seamless integration. And I guess that's it. Those are our 3 big areas to focus on for 2025. But if you keep going, each wedge has different things that we already have done or do currently as we're working on these other things. So it's not like that's the only 3 things we're working on all year long. We invite you to come in anytime and see that we're doing more than that.
This is great.
Mitch, in the WASB assessment of our policies, I can't remember, did they call out anything around AI? Or policies?
I don't remember, I don't think that they did. I don't remember seeing anything jump off the page. And as I think I shared this earlier, I'd gone to something early on and it was like, hold on, because AI is changing multiple times throughout the day. And if you create a policy now, it's obsolete before you can get the ink dried on the paper and things. So I think some school districts are starting to embrace a policy, but I think it's more just, here's what we expect to do with it, not thou shalt not, or, those kinds of things. So I think there'll be some more things that we could even research in terms of that, maybe apply to our school district as we move forward.
You'll see too that when we were creating our vision and our mission statement, that we did use ChatGPT and we did cite that we wrote up our mission statement first and all of our key elements that we wanted. And we're like, yeah, that's all right. And then we put it into ChatGPT and it was like, what? So we tweaked it a little bit, but we loved it. So this is it. If you're welcome to read it, it's right there. And we did put that, we use the spirit of exploration with ChatGPT. We weren't quite sure how to cite that yet. So
Well, we'd be happy to work with your team on, ways the school can use AI. And I think even without forming a policy, I think it's smart to start laying out what's appropriate uses and maybe what's inappropriate uses, and even like,
Mindset.
Yeah.
how can we enhance the staff experience? How can we enhance the student experience in a good way? Anyway, so
right. Thank you. Yes.
we'd be happy to continue that journey with you.
Yeah,
So
we
don't
can't
be
ignore it.
surprised.
So
Yeah.
we'll be waiting.
We might invite you to a committee meeting or
Okay,
something in
that'd
the
be great.
future, okay? Great.
You'll need a motion to approve the library plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the library plan.
Second.
I'll just say, great job.
Thank
You
you.
did this on your own with your team.
Chris and I, yeah. But, we have a lot of support from CPI and other area librarians. We meet in Chris's yard or garden and say, everyone bring their plans and, yeah, so.
Smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
Thompson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Mitch, you want to go back to number 1?
Sure.
I just lost my place.
In the fall of the year, when we talked about having a surplus, we talked about increasing staff salaries by 2%. Had the conversation that this doesn't reach full CPI for this current school year, but it moves us a little bit closer. And the motion from that meeting was to table that. A lot of discussion around pick up additional students. Sometimes we need additional supports in the form of more staffing to help those students be successful. And it was just a concern of, can we wait? So the ask was to bring it back in January. I shared out that I wanted to wait one more month just to make sure we had picked up some new students. We feel we're in still a very good position where district can afford to increase all staff salary by 2%. And I point out, if you look back at the budget comparisons in the 22-23 school year, at the January board meeting, we would have expended 58% of the salary line item. And if you look at the 2024, the 23-24 budget comparison, we've only expended 53%. So we had put that money as a placeholder in salaries. We have not done anything other than having to put it in a line item in our budget. So that money is in the budget. It has not been expended, but it's in that budget area. So budgetarily, I believe we're in a position where you could afford to give that 2% salary increase to all staff members yet this year.
It's retroactive.
Would be retroactive, so it would be, there would be some back pay. The amount of money that was put in as a budget placeholder was $150,000. Calculating what the salaries would be, including the increased Social Security contribution and any increased retirement contributions that would need to be made, that works out to about $130,000. So there would still be some monies left over from that surplus. That was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting. Joni or Andy, you were the two finance members present. Here to add anything to that?
From the conversations that we had at the time of budgeting, we felt like we couldn't achieve full CPI and be fiscally responsible because we felt like that things were too tight. From my personal perspective, if we get to the end of the year, knowing with 3 months left, 3.5 months left of the school year, that we're in a position to do this, I don't know how we get to the end of the year and look our teachers in the eye and say, we chose not to. I feel like this is us making good on our the intentions that we stated at that point in time.
Yeah, I think that a couple of things that we talked about at the finance meeting were, especially my thought process around this after we attended the convention was this is, we've kind of identified as one of our WIGs right now is staff retention. And if we're not using excess funds for our WIGs, are they really our WIGs or something else? And then Joni made a good point, I think, just to kind of go over is that we don't want this to become like a new bargaining tool or a new budgeting tool where we give half now and half later if we can afford it. This is just a one-time circumstance. We don't want this to become like board habit where we budget and then with a contingency if we're still in a good spot, that we want to always be upfront with our best foot right away as much as we can.
We confirm this is indeed a budget amendment that needs voting on.
It would be. And to speak to that, I shared out Board Policy 183 requires a 2/3 vote of the entire membership. So in order for this to be approved and passed successfully, there would need to be 5 yes votes tonight. There are only 4 yes votes. It will not be successful based on board policy.
Does this require a reissuing of every contract that our staff holds, and is our administration up for that? And do we need to set a realistic timeline that it's not going to happen tomorrow, that the intention of in the next 30 days or the next 2 weeks?
I'll ask the administrative assistant who is responsible for updating contract. I think 30 days. Yeah.
But it does require new contracts.
Yeah, we would issue a new contract with a corrected salary amount on each one.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve this increase for staff employees.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Johnston. I'm going to support this for 2 reasons. One is when we voted on CPI last year, we were looking at a pretty significant deficit predicted. And turned out at the end of the summer, all things being equal, we were looking at a surplus. So we were really tight on salary increases because we're looking at deficit, with the wish that if we didn't have a deficit, maybe we would offer a better salary increase. And now we didn't have that deficit. So I think we're kind of making up for that, given that budget correction. And the second reason is, I just think this supports what we're all about in terms of retaining our staff. And I really think it's important to pay our teachers a fair market value. And if I recall what you were pitching, I think you shared some data several months ago, Mitch, that our staff are not like number one on the pay scale in CISA that I'm aware of.
That
I
is
think
correct,
I
yes.
think we're kind of in the maybe above average.
We are.
Is that fair to? That's
Yes.
my recollection. Okay. So I think at a minimum, we want to stay in that ballpark, if not better, to have the best staff around.
And I would point out, it wasn't even the end of summer, it was October, when the state released the final numbers for our revenue limit worksheet. In the middle of October is when we really knew this was going to be our actual budget, and there was that surplus at that time.
Clarification, does this apply to support staff and administration?
All employees, yes.
And then what about employees that were hired this year? After we sign
If somebody,
contracts,
if
they have a
somebody-
contract right now,
yes,
they'll get it,
yes.
Okay.
Unless they're being approved
right?
in
after
tonight's
it.
board meeting. But yes, anybody that was with us at the start of the year would be getting some form of back pay and an adjustment, 2% adjustment.
Any other comments or questions?
Heisler,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay. Number 2 is the resolution authorizing transfer of funds out of an escrow account. Is that
Into an
into
escrow
an
account.
escrow account? Okay.
So this was
For
one of the
debt
things
payments.
that Quinn had referenced. We had levied an additional amount of money. The intent was to pay down the debt on the elementary school referendum as quickly as we could, thinking we could do it right away. The bonds are not callable. You can't make a payment on one of those bonds for another, I think it's another 4 years. I'd have to look back, but there's several years yet. So we put the money into a CD account to earn some interest. Now we're to that point where it's come out of that CD account and we need to establish an escrow account. So we're still not paying that bond, but we're putting it into an account that can only be used to pay down the debt as soon as that's eligible. Baird has shared out some financial data, and in their model, in essence, what we're transferring now will save us, well, it's about $250,000 now. It will save us about $300,000 in interest over the course of this loan, paying this bond debt off. So the resolution is in your board packet. I don't know that you want to read it all because there's lots of whereas the Mineral Point Unified School District in Iowa and Lafayette counties, and whereas the district has certain debt service funds and so on and so forth. But the motion would be to adopt the resolution as presented by Quarles and Brady. Quarles and Brady is the firm that provided us all of the language when we went to referendum. They provided the language for the bond debt to build the elementary school, and they provided the language for the recurring operating referendum. So that's what they do. Quarles and Brady does those kinds of things. All of the language is legal, has been prepared by Quarles and Brady, and I would recommend that you accept the resolution as prepared by Quarles and Brady.
Proper term is right there, the resolution authorizing.
That's the motion. That's the resolution we're voting on.
Written out right there. They've prepared all of the documents for signature.
So if this is if this is successful tonight, we'll need signatures so that we can turn around and send this back to Quarles and Brady tomorrow.
I'll take a motion to approve this resolution as written.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mitch, in layman's terms, we're basically taking money out of a CD, which is essentially cash.
Correct.
and can be used for anything. And we're putting it in an escrow account that can only be used for paying down the referendum debt.
Yeah, you levied the money specifically for paying down the debt.
Right.
We put it into a certificate deposit to earn some extra interest, but that money has always been earmarked to pay down debt. So we would never transfer that anywhere else to buy a vehicle, pay salaries or anything. That money was levied specifically to reduce our debt. And this account will do the same thing. This escrow account will only allow us to pay down the debt.
I guess as a taxpayer, I feel better knowing that even though the intent was to use it in a certain way, now it seems like in this account, it's more restricted funds. Like it can't be used for other expenses, even
Sure. Yeah.
if the intention is there.
That is a
fair?
way of looking at it. Yes.
My other question is it gaining similar interest to when it was in the CD?
I'm not sure what interest rate it would earn in this escrow account.
Okay.
But I'm sure there will be some.
Is it the equivalent to like a savings account at?
I would have to
At a
look at the
bank?
Baird numbers to show specifically what they have, because we'll get this set up through Quarles and Brady, then they'll work with Baird, and then that account will be established and we will transfer the money over to this escrow account.
Okay. Thank you.
I can track down what kind of a interest rate we might be earning.
Any other comments or discussion?
Do we have to do this?
Yes. Otherwise we would be penalized for, in essence, we got the money, there's no expense for that money.
Okay.
Putting it into this escrow account qualifies as an expense
Got it.
in waiting to pay the bond down.
Yeah, I was just thinking about buying a 5-year bond, getting 5% locked in. So that we're actually earning money on it, not losing money compared to inflation. But if we can't, it sounds like there's no other option. We have to do it
Correct.
because a bond is technically liquid and therefore would be cash. Well, then there's no debate.
Well, good question. Okay, go ahead and vote, Angie.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Ferguson,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next we'll vote on a resolution to attach parcels. We're basically swapping, or we're attaching from the Iowa Grant District to Mineral Point District.
Yes, there will be no swapping in this case. It's just an attachment. What you would be approving tonight is a resolution to alter our district boundary. Okay. So what you see on the screen or on the TV, the dark gray areas, I have this map based on school district boundaries. So the dark gray represents the school district of Iowa Grant. Kind of the greeny color represents the Mineral Point School District. So the family has 3 children that currently open enrolled to our district and have been coming here for a few years now and have petitioned the Iowa Grant School District to detach their property from the Iowa Grant School District and attach it to the Mineral Point School District. As you can see, it's right on the border. With them being in the Mineral Point School District, we can provide bus transportation services right to their driveway for them. And you would approve the resolution to modify our district boundaries. Everything is contingent on what the Iowa Grant School District does. You can say, yes, we will do this. We have no problem with it. If the Iowa Grant School District says no, nothing changes, their property stays in Iowa Grant, they most likely will continue to open enroll here to Mineral Point. And that's just how that will be. But
They're meeting tonight.
yes, and they are actually attending the Iowa Grant School Board. I said I thought this was a a very simple vote for my school board. This is a win. This is a positive gain for the Mineral Point School District. I didn't think that they would need to be in attendance here. They are attending the Iowa Grant School District. They are both former Iowa Grant alumni. They have business properties in the Iowa Grant School District and will still maintain those businesses. So they felt it was important, and I encouraged them to attend their board meeting. So if there were questions, that they would be present to answer the questions there, because they're looking to leave that school district.
Sorry. Don't we have to offer up a counter property?
Not necessarily.
Oh,
We did this once before, and that was the request, that if we're getting 5 acres, would we give them 5 acres
Yeah.
back?
well, that's not,
That's not the case here
law.
tonight. No.
okay.
Is the yellow shaded area, our school district, and the gray shaded area, different school district?
Yep.
I see that it is not a straight line already. Is there ever a request or a desire to square things up?
Well, if I back out, then you get to see more of what.
Oh, so it's not like it's straight anywhere.
Right.
Oh my,
Yeah.
okay,
This
it
was
doesn't
something-
change my vote. I was just curious.
This was something, this is called an island in the world of school district properties. So you see these properties in the Iowa Grant School District that are completely surrounded by Mineral Point School District. This was something I had tried to clean up the last time we made an exchange, and there was no interest in making that maneuver and making that move. So this is pretty minor in comparison to trying to clean up an island. We're not creating an island for the Iowa Grant School District. As I said, you can still see that it's bordered on 2 sides, diagonally 3 sides by Iowa Grant or by Mineral Point School District property. So it's not extraordinary on our part.
This is 4.07 acres.
Correct.
And there's not a swap happening just because the acreage is so small?
Correct.
Okay.
Iowa Grant did not ask for it. I've reached out to their superintendent. So this is where we are.
Okay.
I spoke with Ms. Pete. She said basically there is almost like a cul-de-sac there that the township maintains, and if they don't maintain it, they have equipment that they clean it out. So there is an easy bus turnaround to pick up their students there. So, and we do head out that way with a bus route currently. So this wouldn't be too much of a stretch at any capacity. It's not like driving another 25 minutes one way and then back in and adding, anywhere from a half hour to 50 minutes to a regular bus route.
This increase our open enrollment numbers too, or possibilities. So if they're coming out of open enrollment, we'd have 3 more seats potentially.
No, they are currently our students. So they're in our count already. We talked about any new seats. So these students coming out of that open enrollment wouldn't impact that at this point in time.
At this point in the year,
Correct.
right, okay.
I'll make a motion.
One more question about what happens next. So let's say that both districts agree, then do we have to get like state legal approval because this eventually impacts like school finance and all that stuff, right? These boundaries get pulled into like lunch count data and federal grants and.
All the documents are here.
Yeah. So if you vote to accept, we sign our documents. If Iowa Grant votes to approve the detachment, they have documents, it all gets sent off to the state. It becomes effective July 1 of 2024.
Got a motion from Harris. I'll take a second before we have any further discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Is it the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just one resolution. All of this whole action can be approved in one motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One question?
Yes.
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next is approving the district direction for the food service program.
We have one of two choices. We are at the end. We can, with a food service contractor, you can do 5, in essence, 1-year contracts. We are at year 5. This is the 5th 1-year contract with Taher. It's actually the 10th year we've had Taher here. We have two choices. We either go back out to RFP, and what we're saying is we are going to hire a company to provide our food service for us. The last time we did this, there was one company. It was Taher. And they will help us. If we're going to go to RFP, they'll help us. They'll put together the language and push it out to food service providers. And if we only have one food service provider that submits a proposal, that's our winner. We'll come back to the board and you approve that food service provider. And then we're into another round of 5, could be 5 1-year contracts. Doesn't have to be all 5, but you don't have to go to RFP prior to the end of that 5th year.
Do we have to accept the lowest offer if we go to RFP?
I would have to double check the language, legal language, but I believe that is correct.
We can't go to RFP and then decide, hey, we changed our mind, we're gonna go in-house.
The issue is, I think some of the issues, I'm already getting emails from the state, from the DPI about, hey, you need to let us know what your proposals are. Are you going to do this on your own or are you going out to RFP? And these are the requirements that your RFP has to have. So I believe that decision comes down to, are we going to take our food service program back and control everything? Or are we going to go out to RFP and have another company do it for us?
The CPI dictates the RFP for. Any other RFP that we would do, like vendor service, we do that ourselves.
I see.
CPI puts together the RFP. It is, we've never seen.
Andy does.
Oh, it's nasty. Hard to read.
Very detailed and complicated.
The thing I would like to point out, no matter what direction you ultimately decide, our costs are going to remain what they are now or increase with inflation. If we go to RFP, then as I shared at a finance committee meeting one night, here's our costs, and they include an administrative fee and a management fee. But we also pay her for all the employees, all the benefits they get. We pay for all of the food we purchase. We pay for all the commodities we get. We pay for all of those things. Taking it back on ourselves doesn't change those things other than the administrative fee and the managerial fee. Now, there might be some cost savings because we have some flexibility with the menus instead of, hey, you know, this is not the right time of year to be buying oranges. So we wouldn't want somebody saying, we want you to have oranges on your menu 3 days a week for the month of February because oranges are $10 a piece. We could move that to when purchasing oranges is a lot more budget friendly and save some of those kinds of monies, or the amount of purchasing that we would need to do is again more local and we would have much more control over that.
Regardless if there's cost savings or not, you're recommending to take control of our program?
I think budgetarily that provides some additional savings for the school district. The number of people we have to have working for us aren't going to change. We're paying for them all now. We'll pay for all of them a year from now if we're doing it ourselves.
I would pay a premium for more flexibility in the menu and supporting local agriculture and stuff, but I would support it if you think we can do it.
Worried about capacity of like, I mean, just thinking about meeting all the federal requirements for nutrition is overwhelming. Is that just an app you can buy, or like, how do you make sure that the stuff we're getting, that someone has time to sit down and go, okay, what's this actually mean?
You have to have for lack of a better way of a DPI certified food service director. They're the ones that fill out all the reports. They're the ones that look at all the nutritional values of your menus. They're the ones that do all of those things for you. So the Dodgeville School District they do their own. They have a food service director that does all of that for them. Darlington has their own. They do, so each school district would have to have that certified food service director that would provide all of those services. That's part of that job.
Every school district around us has figured this out, with the exception of us and maybe Barneville, who also uses this same vendor.
Yes. And Pecatonica uses New Glarus uses Taher, not Pecatonica. New Glarus uses Taher. And I wouldn't say figured it out. When I first came, we ran the food service program.
Okay.
And there was the hope that going out to RFP might be a cost savings to the district, and that's why we went down this path.
You're recommending that we take our food service program in-house and make that recommendation to you?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I plan on supporting the motion, but I think we just need to make it clear that based on the conversation that were able to have with Taher, the Taher representative at the school board convention, that it's unlikely that a school district of our size would be able to re-engage with a food service vendor because of our relatively low enrollment.
And I believe that's why we only had one company submit an RFP, the company we currently had. I think that's the only reason why there's nothing out here for them, really. We don't have the volume of a Verona or a Madison school district that would generate as much profitability for them.
We talked to one, Andy and I talked to one that said the size would not be an issue, but that was one out of how many free samples were there? I don't think anybody else beside that one said that the size of the school would determine whether they would be able to, participate in an RFP with a district our size. I think it was just that one.
Yeah, the one I talked to would not.
Yeah.
Unless we partnered with several area districts.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody shared they'd heard Dodgeville was considering, and I reached out to the Dodgeville superintendent. He said it's what he loves about going to the school board convention and his board members going through the exhibition hall. He gets all sorts of phone calls and emails, but they have no plans on going away from running their own food service program at this point in time. So Dodgeville is not considering going somewhere in this direction.
Your intent would be to hire our own food service director and not borrow someone else's or go up with someone else's, or
I would look at whatever we have to do. If there is a neighboring district, like I said, when I first came, we ran our own food service program.
Mm-hmm.
One of the years that I was still here before going out to RFP is we shared a food service director with another school district. So that is something that is possible, that we could do that, have all of our legal requirements covered. So I would look at whatever gives us our best opportunity to be successful and try to create some kind of a cost savings while providing nutritional meals for our kids. I don't want us to go away from that.
And we have a legal opinion that there's no concerns about employees not being able to work for us.
Correct.
I think it does create an opportunity for us to at least look into whether year one might be a tall task, but maybe some consortiums with Dodgeville, Darlington on some, mass quantity food buying from local vendors that would probably result in cost savings for all of us, since we have some districts that are on their own as well.
I like that idea.
Also opens us up for, there's so many farm to table grants from the USDA and. Right now.
I think it's definitely something we'll want to monitor monthly, though, financially, and then get reports out on. Because the one nice thing I did like about Tower is there was a stop loss where they guaranteed us the budget unless there was an error in the budget, and obviously we would be on the hook for potential deficits. So things like, getting free and reduced kids to eat so that we can get paid for them, stuff like that. We want to still continue, but I think as long as we keep our finger on the pulse, it's a great opportunity.
My charger here.
I'm going to support it. I'm not, as concerned about cost as I am about the opportunity to, rethink nutrition and food in schools. The local agriculture thing, I think, is great to keep money in our community. And it's not just beef and dairy. It can also be, there's a lot of CSA ag places. There's chicken and eggs, especially, in the summertime, and in the springtime, there's opportunity to bring in fresh fruits and vegetables. We heard, it's from Taher, but it was a good idea about taking kids out to the apple orchard and picking apples, those are the apples they're going to eat in October. So like getting them into it as well. And I think, it creates a culture of respect around food. But I'd like to encourage the administration to, if we take this on, in the summertime, and it's not possible the first year, maybe in the second year, but to consult local doctors, people that are aware of nutrition and what good nutrition for kids and teenagers looks like, and to really think about what we're serving them, not just the cost, but like what kind of sugar and
Get
salt.
rid of that high sugar fruit.
Get rid of the high sugar fruit.
There are guidelines that
Waiting for it.
food service programs
Right.
have to follow.
Right.
So,
The end.
Yeah, that's like a low threshold.
Yeah.
So we can do a better job, and there's always more and more information, every year about different aspects of our diet and exercise. Timing of when to eat and how we eat and all this stuff. So it's just a great opportunity to me, and we happen to live in this area that actually has some pretty good, interesting restaurants and stuff too. Like having a powwow with, Sean from Popolo's, or, these other chefs that are around to just talk about some tricks you could do to make it taste great, but also be healthy. So we have a lot of resources and assets in our community that are unique to Mineral Point and maybe the Driftless area. So I just encourage you I support it, but I'd encourage you to really get creative as we go into this.
And I do want to commend Will because he did win the grand prize from Taher, and is still going to support doing it on our own. So
that's right. I can't be bribed.
Way not to be bought.
Yep.
I appreciate that out of you. And the high sugar fruit.
8:30.
Yes.
What am I doing?
Heisen,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes,
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
They're with the wheels.
Okay.
Then the last action item is approve a purchase over $10,000 using district flow through grant money. Conversation before the board meeting started, we have some students that are attending programming that need transportation. It's one of the things we've been talking about. Special ed funds were available to purchase a vehicle that was perfect to provide these needs. The total cost is over $10,000. This money does not impact any of the budgets. It's coming through flow through grant money. And I would recommend you support the approval of purchasing a minivan to provide for this transportation need.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. And should we purchase our other vehicles too, or that's not happened yet?
We're still searching.
Okay.
Yep, we're still searching.
Do we have staffing to drive this vehicle for those students, or is that it's already
Yep.
accounted for?
Yep.
Very good.
Any other discussion?
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Heisner,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Now you can skip through the board business since you mentioned this earlier in your report. Do the quarterly evaluation in the parking lot, review the parking lot.
Uh-huh.
That's next on the agenda, but you already mentioned that earlier in the board meeting.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so we'll fill out the you guys can fill out the, I guess it's maybe second quarter or third quarter, second quarter. Evaluation tool just sometime before the March meeting, and then we'll spend time during the March meeting to go over feedback. Parking lot. I don't know if there's anything pressing. Mitch, what's the status of the staff recruitment video project?
Should be
Still-
the goal, the deadline is before spring break, which is in March.
Okay.
I've got students who are planning on the interviews, to do the filming and things, so it's moving.
Okay. Yeah. Mitch and I talked about getting a student representative for board meetings, so I kind of put Mitch said he would take on the task of meeting with Ms. Staver, who's the student council advisor, and making a plan to have one selected by end of the year. So for those of you who weren't at the convention workshop, I think some of you were, but the intent is to model after what Dodgeville is doing, and basically they would come and give like a report on not only what the students are up to or big accomplishments or whatever, but also any kind of like feedback or input or things the students want to share with the school board. And then they're actually invited to participate or sit through the board meeting. And I thought it was cool that the actual school board lets them vote. It's not a binding vote, you know, but it basically allows a student representative to say, well, this is what we think of this motion, just so you know. So I thought that was kind of cool. Obviously, if the student needs to leave, it's really for the student, but they would be invited to stay. Obviously until any closed session can happen. And then, yeah, Joni, I think we were going to talk about maybe starting like a captains and presidents club,
Okay.
so that there's a representative from each club that can have a voice, and have that be not only relayed to student council, but also to the student representative. So just another kind of leadership group that maybe could get started. So I know Mitch was going to meet with Mr. Austin on seeing if that was something that could happen. Anything else on the parking lot that?
I'm responsible for line 16, which is exploring Camp Peck, if we could model something for Mineral Point Summer School. I feel like we've talked about that in a couple different meetings, not this meeting, but our January meeting, and I felt like that. Is that something we still want to continue to explore, or do we feel like we're not ready for that at this point?
I think explore it.
And I will bring it to the
I mean,
personnel
that's
committee
just,
in the
that's
near
my
future.
personal opinion. This is something that parents are asking for.
Yeah, I think it kind of dovetails into the survey that we're.
I think the survey might help drive
Given
that
some parent
conversation.
requests
That's a
for
good
like
point.
some pseudo childcare kind of daytime activities during the summer that has some adult supervision while the parents are working.
But if we get a really
So-
positive response from the survey, I'd rather have some thoughts in place than trying to scramble at the last minute.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good.
We added a couple things that aren't in the parking lot yet tonight. Being able to bring the AI, like some thinking about AI to the policy committee is one.
Yeah.
So I think you've got that.
Mhm.
And then the other was, that for the middle school, we'll hear what the needs are, so that we don't miss that on next month's agenda. And then if you want to invite, there was something about,
I made a note about updating our capitalization policy that was recommended by
Yep.
Johnson and Block. Mitch, would that be a board policy that we would need to update?
Yes.
Okay, so that could be in policy committee too. That was the other thing.
and then inviting, the playground kind of concepts to operations, whether that be March 7th or later.
Yeah.
I think it depends on when it's ready. It doesn't have to be March 7th.
Okay. Great.
Do we have another meeting on the books with the staff reps?
No, it's not on the books. Talked about it when it came, we talked about budgeting and looking at next year's budget and moving forward, so. But no date was set yet.
Is there like a specific time that we start talking about that you had in mind, Aaron?
Typically March, April, we're looking at the preliminary budget. Andy, you got the timeline memorized better than I do, but.
You have a finance committee meeting on the 4th of March. One of the things you were gonna do in that committee meeting was to look at the Baird model. I have Danielle prepared to be at that committee meeting and kind of talk through some scenarios and get some feedback from that Baird model, what that does to the budget. So that sometime after that meeting would be probably a good time to try to schedule that next retreat meeting.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if you guys all saw, but I updated the Google Calendar so that we have set committee meetings the week before every regular meeting, unless there's no agenda.
What is on, and it was,
I was just gonna look that up.
okay,
It's
March 4th is finance and personnel.
thank you. And then
March 7th, that's a Thursday, is ops and policy.
and that would typically be a Wednesday, but we moved it to Thursday in March just to accommodate schedules. But
so that's
typically
Mondays, Wednesdays.
Mondays, Wednesdays, first week of the month. It's going to be committee meetings. All right. Should we go to employee services? I can take motions to approve these hires in open session, or we could take a motion to go into closed session to discuss any kind of confidential information around these hires and then vote on them coming out of closed session back into open session.
Any objection to open session?
We should vote on them separately, but I would take a motion to approve the hire of Ariana Barr as the middle school instructional assistant.
So moved.
Harris Skelnick. This is
Both these positions have been vacant for quite some time and had approval from the board as a whole to post them and do whatever we can to hire. This is the first time we can actually bring two candidates forward to say, we've got somebody.
And the candidates went through a typical hiring process.
Yes.
any other discussion about the instructional assistant hire? What would be the specific role? Would it be assigned to one student or?
This is a student at the middle school, so the position was formerly at the elementary school, not come to the high school or to the middle school. It is one-to-one with the new student who enrolled this year.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kelvin,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Yes. Take a motion to approve hiring Rodney Warren as the part-time elementary night custodian.
So moved.
Okay, Bush. Second. Nothing. Okay. Any questions, concerns, discussion?
He check water pressures and stuff before he leaves at night.
I don't know if he'll be here that long. And actually, Tom, you might speak to this, is probably what, 10 minutes after the nighttime staff left? 10 or 15 minutes right after. So. They walk right by.
Sort of was the flowing water.
Well, no. Yeah, let's hold on, no. So within 15 minutes of the night staff being done for the night, done for the week, in essence, and this happens.
It was a fluke, right? Like it wasn't,
Correct.
okay, it wasn't
We
an act of
actually have a-
negligence in any way.
We have a local plumber who's kind of looking at it right now. It's, kind of 1 year on parts is a warranty, and while the unit is newer, it's over a year old. I mean, it's probably 3 to 4 years old, so there's nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. I will come back to the other point that Quinn had shared about transferring the money for the referendum over. Well, guess where I'm going to look at trying to fix the building based on this damages back to that referendum monies. So there's money available for us to make the fixes, and I'm going to use it on that building to make those fixes. There may be some money left over to transfer, but
Has Mrs. Burris requested a room transfer yet?
higher ground.
Higher ground, different end of the building. I don't know what.
No, the plan, her room will be ready. We have shampooed the carpets. We've kind of disinfected it. It's ready. We'll move everything in on Wednesday. We just want it to dry out from the shampooing as well. Early childhood 4K will be back in there on Thursday. And then the plan is to, I've reached out to the architects. I feel like we have a great relationship with them. He sent me an email this morning shortly after talking to him. Here's the numbers for the product that you had in that room to order. I believe they're still making it. So it's still coming in the same die lots, this, that, and everything else. So then here's the installer. So we're going to reach out to all those. the goal is to replace those carpet tiles, whether it can happen over our spring break or it will happen over the summer, but that room has been underwater 3 times now. One time from water up above, one time because the heating and cooling unit in her classroom froze, the pipe burst, and we took on water at that time. And I'm not aware of the 3rd time, so I don't know what happened that 3rd time for her room to have water come on, but
I don't know that the 3rd time water was on, but she had mold after one of the previous floods. They had mold grow in the room, so she ended up having to move everything out and clean it and replace items that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Bush,
Yes.
Yes.
Eichner,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shelby.
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, we don't need to go into closed session. Next meeting is March 11th. Tentative agenda I have. We'll review our board meeting evaluation for the quarter. We're gonna get follow-up from the principals on like data goals.
recommended fixes.
Recommended fixes, yeah. I have approval of school calendar.
Yeah.
Yep,
That'll be on
that's
there?
also on there. I got that on a side note here.
Okay. That's about all I have for tentative agenda. Other than maybe reports and we'll be starting preliminary budget discussions, I'm assuming, right? Correct.
And I'm gonna be following at that time, but I'll try to join the meeting remotely.
Okay.
Since we have that ability now.
Mhm.
We'll just need you to speak up.
From Brazil.
We need you to stay muted so we don't hear any like beach seagulls.
Samba.
Samba.
Well, it's gonna be like
Birds clinking.
10 at night there, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Right.
Well, so that might be happening.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. A second.
Councilman Johnson, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 8:48.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone online.